Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I begin in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and welcome to this week's edition of Behind the Headlines with you here on British Muslim TV, Sky Channel 752. We're also online, www.britishmuslim.tv, with me, Ahmad Bostan, with you for the next hour on this beautiful Friday, the 29th of October 2021. Regular viewers of the program will be familiar with the fact that each and every week we have the great honor and pleasure of being able to interview inspirational guests who share with us their story in life, their struggles, the highs, the lows, the aim being to inspire and motivate all of us to do better, to get involved and to get active in our local and even national communities. We've had many guests so far this series, mashallah, including Senator Salma Atulijan all the way from Canada, to a number of local acclaimed figures as well. Last week, of course, we were speaking about the importance of adoption and fostering. That was a fascinating discussion with the amazing My Adoption family who joined us on the program, and it was a great honor to have them with us. And tonight we have an equally inspirational guest, someone who I'll be introducing very shortly. Remember, the phone lines are open for you to call in anytime you wish on 01924 231 083. That is the studio number, 01924 231 083. We're also at British Muslim TV on Twitter. And if you need another mode of communication, we are British Muslim TV on Facebook. So please do get in touch with us with your questions and your comments. Inshallah, we would love to hear from you as ever. This is your program, your chance to have your say on those issues that matter to you. 01924 231 083 to call live into the studio, at British Muslim TV on Twitter, British Muslim TV on Facebook. And tonight we are here with a great honor and pleasure of being able to speak to one of the most influential British Muslim politicians in the country. Someone who was the first Muslim Lord Mayor of Manchester, the first Muslim Member of Parliament in the Manchester area, someone who has stood for social justice, equality and fairness for many, many years, for his entire life, and someone whose story is a point of inspiration. He left school aged very young, 11, with no qualifications, but worked hard, persevered, became a police constable in Manchester, then went back to school, in effect, went back into education and became a solicitor. After that, he got involved in politics, standing for the local council in Manchester. He served, as I mentioned before, as the first Muslim Lord Mayor of the city, and then went on to the European Parliament. Now he is a member of the Westminster Parliament. He is the shadow deputy leader of the House of Commons, and mashallah, he is none other than Afzal Khan, Member of Parliament, who will be speaking to very shortly. A very inspirational story, his own story, and today we have a unique opportunity to speak with him about his life, his journey from Pakistan all those years ago as a young boy, aged 11, the struggles that he went through, and mashallah, the huge success that he has today achieved, and the reasons behind that success, words of motivation, inspiration, all of that on this program today. And if you have a question for the Honourable Afzal Khan MP, you are welcome to call us here in the studio on 01924 231 083. That's 01924 231 083. You can contact us on Twitter at British Muslim TV, and also on Facebook. We are British Muslim TV, and we would love to hear from you on today's program. Perhaps you yourself want to go into politics or even the law, in fact, want words of inspiration, words of guidance. You are welcome to call us on the program. You're welcome to tweet. You're welcome to get in touch via Facebook as well. It will be a pleasure and honor for us to hear from you. We are here tonight. We're live, we're interactive, we're here with you on this program. And actually, I think something that we seldom give consideration to is the journeys that particular influential people have taken in life. Sometimes you see them on the television screen and you think, wow, wouldn't it be amazing for me to be in the House of Commons one day, in a council chamber one day, in a position of influence and power? They must have come from great wealth. They must have come from great privilege. But actually the story is very different. It's a story of struggle. It's a story of aspiration. And it's a story that is a source of motivation for all of us. We speak of the sacrifices made by our elders in order for us to enjoy the lives that we have today. And this program, in effect, is a consideration of those sacrifices, is a consideration of those huge steps that were taken by generations gone by in order for us to be where we are today. And it is only because we are able to have people in Parliament, council chambers, and places of influence and power across the country that the voice not only of the Muslim community, but the voice of diverse communities is heard across the country. We are fortunate to be a country that is increasing in its diversity. If we look at many areas of the country like Manchester, Birmingham, Bradford, London, they are cities, they are towns that are set to become ethnic minority majority cities and towns before long. The diversity that we see, mashallah, not only in the form of communities who came here a number of decades ago, but even newly arrived communities, is a great source of inspiration. I'm delighted to say that the Honourable Afzal Khan MP joins me now. Assalamu alaikum, Afzal Khan, Member of Parliament. Thank you so much for taking out valuable time to be with us on the programme today, sir.
Wa alaikum salam, Ahmad Bhai. Wonderful to be here with you.
Now, I want to start, Afzal Bhai, if I can, at the very beginning, because quite often we speak to you about many topics. And as I said to you today, you are the topic. We want to talk about you and your story. When you came from Pakistan all those years ago, arriving here in the UK, what was that step like? What was that journey like as a young boy? Do you have any memories of that time?
I do. But I think when you're young, you just don't fully understand, comprehend what's happening. Usually you're excited with the change. Like many of the young people, I was also excited that I'm going to Britain and it's going to be an amazing life. But here you are. Then, it's not been, like you said, straightforward. When you get here, then you suddenly realize the differences that exist from one culture, language, friends, families, everything's one side, and then you're in another place altogether. So that huge change itself can be destabilizing. And to some people, including myself, it did. So that was my initial sort of ideas about when I came here as a young boy.
We are going to talk to you more about those initial steps that you took here in this great nation of Britain and the struggles that you face as well. But we are coming up to a break. Your questions are welcome as well. It's not just me asking the questions today. If you've got any questions for Afzal Khan, Member of Parliament, maybe you're watching us from Manchester, maybe you're a constituent of Mr. Khan's, your first steps in the United Kingdom, making that journey as a young boy, feeling the excitement of coming to a new country and the aspirations that you had. And you spoke there about the difficulties as well when you came here. Did you enroll into school immediately? What was that process like back then?
It wasn't quite immediately, but a few months down the road, I certainly did. But that also meant that I'd missed all my primary education and part of my secondary education. So that was the school side of things. And then at the time, they used to have a system where they would isolate you for all those immigrant students, who would come in. They'll spend sort of focus, sort of energy into the language idea and maths, basic stuff. And then half the day you would go to this special school, and then half the day, the afternoon, you would be in the main class. So that itself, I thought, was very disruptive. It's certainly not the best way of learning by putting all the people who don't English together, because yes, an ideal way of speaking your own mother tongue. So that went on. And then I suppose I did my few years till I became 16. And I left school. And when I was 16 at the time, there wasn't much of encouragement. And I had the feeling that I'm not going to do that well. So which meant then I told myself, well, if we're not going to do well, what's the point sitting exams? So I didn't even bother sitting the exams, and I left school. And nowadays, you know, I joke and say I left school with 9 no levels. So the fact that I never even sat any exams. So my first job was then as a laborer in a cotton mill. So that was my working life starting. But I'll tell you one thing, working in a mill suddenly changed my mind. After about 2-3 years, I realized that was a big mistake. You know, I should have worked harder. I should have studied. I should have set exams. And I realized that actually, you know, education is a great leveler. It opens up the doors for you. That change basically happened simply because I did a night shift. I finished early in the morning, 6 o'clock. I was walking home. And this particular mill, it was sort of at the lowland, and I sort of walked up a hill. Halfway through, suddenly I stopped, looked around, and saw the whole mill. And then I stood there for a second, and I thought, oh, do I want to spend the rest of my life working in this mill? And you can imagine the answer was pretty clear, no. But if the answer is no, then what do you do? With my qualifications of 9 no levels, you know, how many choices do you really have?
Yes.
And that brought me to the point that I really had to study again. So then I went through another phase of life where I used to work and study. So did one bit, next bit, other bit, and ultimately I did manage to do lots of different jobs, which included being a taxi driver, working in a restaurant, takeaways, being a bus driver, and then working in the police. In those days, there weren't many in the police as well. Then did law.
We are going to talk to you more about those initial steps that you took here in this great nation of Britain and the struggles that you face as well. But we are coming up to a break. Inshallah, we'll be back right after this break. And please remember, dear viewers, your questions are welcome as well. It's not just me asking the questions today. If you've got any questions for Afzal Khan, Member of Parliament, maybe you're watching us from Manchester, maybe you're a constituent of Mr. Khan's, and you would love the opportunity to speak with him about his journey and story, we'd love to hear from you. 01924 231 083 is a number to get you to me, and we'll be back right after this break. Keep it behind the headlines. Keep it British Muslim TV. Inshallah, see you shortly. Dear viewers, assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Behind the Headlines. We are joined by the Honourable Afzal Khan MP. Afzal Khan, just before the break, you were speaking about, you looked at that mill and thought, do I really want to spend the rest of my life here? And you were speaking to the real diversity of jobs that you did, from working on the buses, taxi driving, restaurants, takeaways, and even the police. What effect did that have on you, the diversity of work experience that you were building up out of necessity, I suppose, at the time?
Yeah, spot on. It was through necessity, so I didn't care what was available. As long as there was some job available, that meant there was some money coming in, which meant that I could look after myself, my family, and then carry on with my goal. And that was fundamentally getting a more education. So that's how it was. But I think it put me in a very good place. I can now relate to people. I've gone through mill of life, different experiences. So even now when people come to see me, most of the things I can relate to because I've gone through myself. So it does help you in life, and to be a public servant, to have that drive to serve people as well. So I think it's put me in a good place, actually.
And you became a police constable, but again, because of the work ethic that I suppose you'd built up, again, out of necessity and also needing to go somewhere and do something, you then went back to school. You then went back to education and qualified as a solicitor. Why did you decide to do that? Was there something missing in your life, even with the huge amount of diversity of jobs that you were taking on?
No, nothing was missing. The point was, I was very clear with my thoughts. And that idea was that I needed to get education because I realized the doors will be open through my education. The jobs were necessity, survive, to make sure there's an income coming in. And then when I was a police officer, I then applied for a leave without pay. Again, because I was quite comfortable being a police officer. I thought, it's an area where we need to focus, we need to be more engaged. One of the key areas in my life which has been is that we are British Muslims. And as a British Muslim, Britain is our country. And therefore, we need to be in all walks of life. And we need to do well. And that was the sort of drive which I had. And then with the police, with the legal side, then you could see a sort of natural progression of doing law. And I had the plans actually going back. But sadly, at the time, the police force's attitude was that they wouldn't give you a leave, even when it was a leave without pay. I couldn't understand this. And I thought it doesn't make sense. You're getting someone who's from on their own back, trying to be better qualified, better person, which will be a great asset for the force. Why are you not allowing them? So they refused. And their attitude was that I should carry on working as a police officer and part-time study. And my issue was I was married, I had some young children, I was involved with the community work as well, and I was working full-time. And then to study on top of that, that would have been too much. So the key point was to study full-time. And that was the second reason was also full-time would have been quicker. I was already late. I already missed my education. I didn't want to be more late. So that was what drove me to then leave the police force. And interesting for your views is, at the time when I decided to leave the police force, the chief superintendent called me in. And he said, Afzal, you're making a big mistake. You have a great future in the police. So I looked at him, smiled, and I said, well, I'll live with my mistake. Thank you very much. I'm going. So I left and then did law. And after that, I went on to do my articles, then qualified. And then what, again, an interesting bit is I went to see the chief superintendent who had told me that I was making. He met me, he gave me coffee, biscuits, and I said, you remember, you told me that I was making a big mistake. He looked at me, he said, yes, I did, because I thought you've got a great future here. So I said, now, let me tell you something. I said, I'm a qualified solicitor. I earn more than what you earn. And I don't do any night shifts, and I don't take any orders. Thank you very much.
But actually, when you made that decision, as you said, you had a young family, you had children. Was it a tough decision for you, or was there an overpowering sense in yourself, I've got to get this education, it's now or never?
No, I think the difference fundamentally was my wife was also a student. So one of the things in my life is I worked. And I allowed my wife to finish her education because she had not messed up like I did. She did do good results, at 16, and then she did a great A-levels. That I thought, why stop her? Let her carry on, finish her education.
Yes.
And she did. She qualified. She became a dentist. So she then had a job. So that meant, as a family, we had money coming in.
Yeah.
So money wasn't that pressure for me. So I could then go and study. So she worked and then I studied. Before I worked and she studied.
Yes. Wow.
So we were a good team.
MashaAllah. Supported each other there as well.
Yeah.
MashaAllah. Yeah, amazing. So you went on, you qualified, you became a solicitor. MashaAllah, really good profession. But again, there was a motivation of yours to enter the political world. You said you were involved in community work to begin with. Was that a natural progression to move from community work to actually getting involved in local politics?
No, it wasn't actually. When I said I do the community work, that community work was fundamentally more about within the Muslim community. I was involved with some Muslim organizations. I was involved with some charity work. So it wasn't political because I was not political at all. Then basically the two things happened. One was much more local. What we had was a councillor who was a Lib Dem councillor. And I felt he was quite a divisive force. And I thought the community's interest isn't having a political leadership who are divisive. You want political leadership who build bridges. So I detested his style of politics and for what he stood for. And then the second was generally the leadership in the Muslim community. They had the view that actually we needed people to be involved in politics. So they reached out to me saying that, you have a right sort of background, you should go into politics. And I remember when a number of them said to me this, and I laughed at them. And the reason I laughed at them was I said, you clearly have picked me, but you don't even know that I have never even voted. So I wasn't even bothered about voting. And you're telling me I should be involved in politics.
Wow.
And they said, look, no. You should be involved in politics because as a community, we need people who actually understand community and therefore will be able to be a good representative to give a right message of who we are, what we want to do. And therefore, in that sense, you are strong and you therefore will be good. So I said to them, all right, I can't promise you that I will do this, but I will think about it. So I then thought about it. Then I took some more advice, number of other people who I thought who were good, who I respected. And all of them also concluded the same point. They thought, no, as a community, we need people to be involved in all walks of life, and in particular in politics. Because at the end of the day, it's the politicians who actually make the laws, which all of us have to follow. And if we are not on the table there, then we have to be looking towards others to look after us, to know what our needs are. And that's what took me there. But then again, that decision wasn't easy, because if you think about my history and my direction and how I traveled, the journey I turned to become a qualified solicitor, and at that time I was also a partner, where I was earning a very good money, to the extent that even today, 20 years later, I still earn less money as an MP. So it was a huge cut in my income. But then, because of my strong feelings of what needed to be done, I was willing to go forward. And my wife, I think, was a great asset. She was very good, because I struggled in making my mind up for about 2-3 months on this subject. My heart was saying I need to do it. My mind wasn't sure because of the uncertainty. I was in a very good, strong, comfortable position as a partner in a law firm, which had a number of other solicitors, good money coming in. I was relatively young, and the whole uncertainty around politics. Again, for your viewers, it's quite interesting that there was 3 of us were partners in that law firm. So my wife was good, because she said to me, look, take the money out of your mind and then think, what is it that you want to do? By doing that, that actually made things so much clearer for me. It became so much easier to make that decision that I want to do this. And then I had a meeting with my partners, and interestingly, one of the partners said to me that he really admired what I was going to do, and he wished if he had the courage to do what I was going to do. But the other partner, he swore at me and said, "You are a mental case." He said, "You are a mental case." He said, "There are 100,000 people in Manchester who would love to be in your shoes. You are letting go of all this for what? Wow. You don't know if you'll be elected. And even if you are elected, you don't know if you'll be elected again. Why do this?" But here you are. After this, I went ahead and I left my partnership and then into politics. And Allah has been so kind. Allah has been so merciful.
Yeah, and the sacrifice is made all the more because you were standing initially, of course, for the local council. Local councillors get paid allowances, and they are nowhere near what solicitors can earn in their profession. So that sacrifice that you were making, as your wife said to you at the time, taking the money out of the equation, was a huge sacrifice, but again, testament to the passion that you had for changing your local community in that particular way. We are coming up to a break, but we will continue our discussion after the break. If you do have a question for Afzal Khan MP, a fascinating story thus far, please do get in touch. 01924 231 083 is our studio number. At British Muslim TV on Twitter, British Muslim TV on Facebook. Can you relate to this story? Is this a story that you've been on yourself? We'd love to hear from you as well. Please do get in touch, because I think we seldom speak about the sacrifices, the journey, the hurdles that people go to in order to become who they are today, in order to sit in those positions of influence and power, which don't come easy, which come with their sacrifices, with their trials and tribulations. And today we have the unique honor of being able to hear about those trials, those tribulations, those struggles from the Honourable Afzal Khan MP, whose political journey we'll continue speaking about after the break. And if you have any questions, they are, of course, most welcome on phone, on Twitter, and also on Facebook. A huge amount of ways you can get in touch with us on the program. This is Behind the Headlines. We are British Muslim TV, confidently Muslim, comfortably British. Right back to you after this break. Dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Behind the Headlines. We're in conversation today with the Shadow Deputy Leader of the House of Commons, the Honourable Afzal Khan, Member of Parliament for Manchester Gorton, speaking about his journey, his very, very inspirational journey at the age of 11 with no qualifications, leaving school with, again, no qualifications, but persevering, working hard, becoming a police constable, then leaving the police, becoming a solicitor, and then making the huge sacrifice of leaving his position as a partner, no less, in a law firm to enter the world of politics. Now, Afzal Khan, when you made that decision, when you said, that's it, I'm leaving this profession, I'm now going to stand for local government, I'm going to stand to become a local councillor, what was that process like for you, standing for election for the first time? Did you think to yourself, have I made a big mistake here?
No, actually, one of the things I've Allah's blessed me with is, this idea of being clear and firm in my direction. I never thought about defeat. I knew that I will work hard, because that's been the hallmark of my life. I've always worked hard with whatever I do. I don't do half attempts. I do 110% attempts. That's the way I operate. And I was successful. And, what has been an amazing journey then of that success, that fight was a huge fight, because I took a seat from a sitting Lib Dem councillor. Those people who know about politics, they know that the Lib Dems are actually one of the most difficult councillors to dislodge. They really get their grip into the community, and they're not easy to defeat. So that was a huge fight, but Allah blessed me with that straight first time win, and it was a narrow win, 250, something like 52 or some low votes. But then every time after that, I kept doubling my support. Ultimately, as a councillor, that seat which I took from the Lib Dems, I turned it into the safest seat in Manchester, where my majority was bigger than every other councillor's vote in the city.
Wow.
So but it's alhamdulillah, I always work hard, and then I always reach out to the community. I don't care about the background of individuals. I serve. And that then gave me a very broad-based support and put me in a very strong position. Then 4 or 5 years later, in 2005, I became the first Asian, first Muslim, the youngest Lord Mayor in the history of Manchester. And that was awesome. It was an amazing experience, being a royalty for a whole year, being the center of stage, being the first citizen of Manchester, no less city than Manchester, which is a global city. You go anywhere in the world, they'll know Manchester. And you were the Lord Mayor with a million plus pounds chain around your neck with a car and a bodyguard and other attendant with you everywhere you go. So it's an amazing experience.
MashaAllah.
So I did that. And then I was awarded Mayor of the Year for the country. So again, not many people have won that. I was the first in Manchester's history to be the Mayor of the Year for the country. It was phenomenal work I did. We managed to set up British Muslim Heritage Centre. Many of your viewers may know it's an amazing centre. It was during my tenure that I was able to raise that funding for it, for £4.5 million. So which is a good achievement in the sense that no Lord Mayor ever raised so much money.
Wow,
so I was able to smash a record after record doing that.
The best mayor and the best fundraiser, huh? MashaAllah. So how did you, when you rose to that office, you went there as a minority yourself, the first Asian, the first Muslim. Did you feel an extra burden on your shoulders? Did you feel as though I need to work doubly hard because if I don't quite make it and I don't quite do my best, it's not just me, but maybe, it doesn't look good on the community. Did you feel the extra burden on your shoulders?
Yeah, well, I think the interesting story is becoming mayor, because at the time when I decided, I went to see the leader of the council and I said, I was thinking of going for this. And he looked at me, he said, great. I said, will you support me? And he said, yes. And I said, do you think I'm going to win? And he said, no. What? What? And this is the lesson ultimately for your viewers as well. For a moment I thought, well, if I'm going to lose, what's the point running for it? But then I said to him, okay, let me think about this. I thought about it, took some advice. I took advice from two friends and both of them came back to me and said, no, go for it. And their thinking was, look, if you don't go for it, you've got zero chance of winning.
Yes.
By going for it, you may have some chance.
Absolutely.
And the second one was, but even if you lose, you would have learned. By learning, next time you'll be more likely to succeed.
Absolutely.
So I rang him back and I said, thank you for your advice, but I'm going to run for it. And he said, good luck. I ran the campaign, and then on the night when the voting going on, I won by 2-3 votes.
Wow.
I won.
MashaAllah. Every vote counts, as they say in the political world. Now, you then went on, Afzal Khan, to become a member of the European Parliament. You'd already had central government interaction as well. Even in 2005, you were a part of a group set up by the Home Office looking at issues around counter-terrorism, counter-extremism. You were also involved in a number of advisory roles with the government as well. And you actually went and you were selected and then elected to the European Parliament. What was the motivation behind that? Because clearly you'd made a huge difference in Manchester. You'd made your council seat the safest in the city itself. You'd made history by becoming the first Muslim Lord Mayor. Why did you decide the European Parliament? Why not Westminster or something like that?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things which is important to me is really not the position. It's actually serving, which is key. And I drive that from the Prophet's teaching. Prophet ﷺ said, the best among you are those who bring benefit to others.
SubhanAllah.
So the driving force I have actually isn't the position, but about bringing benefit to others. The second hadith, which most people actually don't know about, the first one I've said, people know about this. The other one is a person whose 2 days are the same is in state of loss. This is a big one, actually, that has a human being, has life, time stops for no one. And therefore, for even you standing still in one place, you are actually losing out because time doesn't stop. So for you to constantly strive to improve yourself, to better yourself, to make yourself a better person is the key to success. And these are the two big things which have always driven me and have been the core values which drive me forward. So I had this idea of serving. And then at the time in 2009, we had Nick Griffin, who was the leader of the British National Party, was elected in the Northwest to represent all of us in the Northwest in the European Parliament. And I was engaged with the campaign to stop him being elected. I am a founding member of Hope Not Hate, and I'm also a founding member of United Against Fascism, this anti-racism movement that we have in Britain. I have been a sort of part of that from day one, virtually. And this is what had driven me. And on the 2009, when we had the result and he had been elected, that was the night in Manchester Town Hall, I decided that I'm going to be a member of European Parliament. And my motive was simply to take out the Nick Griffin, the British National Party. I did not feel, like I told you, I came into politics because I felt the person, the Lib Dem councillor, was divisive. I felt, well, no doubt in my mind about Nick Griffin. He certainly was divisive. Every time he opened his mouth in the European Parliament, he was spouting out poison against the Muslim community. And that was my motivation, and I went for it. And I remember during the campaign, you know, he's put a leaflet out which went to every single house in the Northwest. And the message in the leaflet simply was, look, 8 people are going to be elected here. Big party is going to get their people through. And the last seat is going to be between me, Nick Griffin, and a Muslim Labour. So he didn't even use my name. He wanted to use my faith in order to capitalize from it. He thought that the non-Muslims would sort of rally around him, and this will ensure that he will win. And alhamdulillah, we put the good campaign together. On the election night, he lost, I won. So I went over to him and I said, Nick Griffin, you said that people of the Northwest have a choice to elect a Muslim Labour or you, British National Party leader Nick Griffin. And the people of the Northwest prefer Muslim Labour over you.
Wow.
And he didn't like that. And he said, I'll be back. And I said, no, you won't. You are finished. That's the end of him. We never seen Nick Griffin back again in politics. No. So thank God for that. And I feel honored that I was able to knock him out.
And that campaign you ran against the British National Party, a far-right party, as you said, many times you've heard Islamophobic messaging coming out of them, and in recent times not as visible as they once were. What effect do you think your victory had on the Greater Manchester region? Did it bring communities together?
Of course it did. You know, it's a very powerful message, defeating the Griffin, because, you know, in any society, in any time, what you have is good, decent people in majority.
Yes.
This is always the case. It's sadly, sometimes these good people remain silent, and through their silence, they sort of support things like this. But, you know, there was amazing buzz, both of my win and equally when I went to the European Parliament. If my name had reached the European Parliament before I got there, people knew that this is the man who knocked out Nick Griffin. So that was great. It was a great lift for myself personally as well.
Yes.
And straight away, I was appointed as Vice President of Security and Defense in the European Parliament.
Superb.
And that's a huge position which no Muslim has ever had. You know, the whole European Union, and you have someone of my background to be the Vice President. This shocked many Muslim countries whenever I visited these countries, that, wow, how come this is possible? And, you know, all that helps.
We are going to continue speaking about your journey in the European Parliament and later to Westminster itself. And if you have a question, please get in touch with us, 01924 231 083. And of course, at British Muslim TV on Twitter, British Muslim TV on Facebook. We're in conversation with the Honourable Afzal Khan MP, Shadow Deputy Leader of the House of Commons. We'll be back right after this break. Please ensure you get in touch. We would love to hear from you. Dear viewers, assalamu alaikum and welcome back to, would you believe, the final segment of Behind the Headlines. Time truly does fly. We're in conversation with the Honourable and inspirational Afzal Khan, Member of Parliament for Manchester Gorton, and we were just speaking about how Mr. Afzal Khan MP a British Muslim, went forth and defeated Nick Griffin, the leader of the then leader of the British National Party, and became a member of the European Parliament. And the effect, the hugely welcome effect that that had on communities in Manchester, bringing people together, the politics of unity as opposed to the politics of division. Now, Afzal Khan MP, you spent a number of years in the European Parliament. You were Vice President of Defence and Security, a hugely prestigious office that you held there. You also became the official representative, the rapporteur for Muslim communities. What would you say was your biggest success, your biggest achievement in the European Parliament in the 3 or so years that you were there?
I would say the biggest achievement probably was the motion which when we got through for the recognition of Palestine. That was a huge win with a huge majority. We got that through. You can imagine the opposition and things that you would get with that sort of motion, but we were successful. I would say that probably is one of the key things, my achievements in the European Parliament. Then I also did a lot of work in building bridges with the Muslim world and the European Union. That also helped me to grow as well. I was also a shadow rapporteur for Bosnia. Bosnia is also going through a transition to joining the European Union, so I helped them onto that road, and they're still progressing with that, so that was also pretty good. I also did GCC, the Gulf Cooperation Council, many visits to strengthen those relationships. That work has been done even there now, and here in Britain as well, they were signing a trade agreement with them, so that is there. Then I also chaired the MENA region, which is part of the Muslim, again, world of in Africa, touching all those, Morocco, Tunisia, those countries, Egypt, etc. So these countries I dealt with as well. So I did most of the Muslim world, and including some work in South Asia. So that was there. And then in the Europe as well, I did work on community cohesion, on racism, Islamophobia stuff as well. We built up a director responsible in Europe to tackle some of these issues. That all happened during my tenure, actually. And then basically Brexit came along, and then this opportunity came for me to stand as a member of Parliament. That itself was, again, interesting journey, because somehow I managed to attract people to oppose me as well. And this time, the famous George Galloway opposed me in Manchester. He stood. But alhamdulillah, that was an amazing win. I remember George Galloway, saying that in his opening remarks against me that he's going to win and I'm going to lose, and that's it, basically. And Allah blessed me that I had a huge win. I had the biggest win in the history of Manchester. My majority was over 30,000, and total vote was about 35,000. And our friend George Galloway, if I can call him a friend, he only got 2,600 and didn't even turn up to the count. This was supposed to be mother of all wins for George Galloway, but it turned out to be mother of all defeats. And that took me to the Parliament. And again, Allah blessed me there. After about 3 weeks, Jeremy Corbyn was the leader. He called me in and he said, I'd like you to be part of my front bench and to be a shadow immigration minister. I laughed with him and I said, Jeremy, I've just got here to the Parliament. I don't even know from my left to right how to go about in Parliament. And you want me to be a shadow minister? And he looked at me, smiled, and he said, you may have got here now, but you have bags of experience. So I would like you to be the shadow minister.
And that journey, for anyone, is a very unique journey. The fact that you, as a proudly British Muslim yourself, have not only you've served in 2 parliaments, the European Parliament and now the Westminster Parliament. There's many people who would love to have those opportunities. There's many people who would have previously served the European Parliament who would have loved to have the opportunity, but perhaps testimony to your skills and your experience, and mashallah, Allah blessed you to have the honor of serving in 2 parliaments. How do they compare? How does the European Parliament compare to the Westminster Parliament where you now serve?
No, you're right. It's unique in the sense I'm the only Muslim in the whole world who has been elected both to the European Parliament and then again elected to the Mother of Parliament, the British Parliament.
Yes.
There are differences. I think fundamentally what you can say is the British Parliament is an old institution. That's why it's mother of all parliaments. And whereas the European Parliament, whilst it's huge, it's a big parliament of 28, 29 countries, huge diversity, but it's in a modern institution. And there are a couple of fundamental differences between the two. I would say that the parliament in Britain is very adversarial style of politics. You can see even the layout of the parliament, it's two swords apart,
yes,
standing against one another. Whereas in the European Parliament, even the whole parliament is circular. So you sit around. So it's much more consensus-based parliament. And then because also of modern institution, there's electronic voting goes on in the European Parliament. So instantly you vote and instantly you have the result. Whereas the British Parliament traditionally, you go through the whole process of a division, dividing, and then going through the yes and going through the no, and then each one is counted one by one. It's almost like cattle going through the gate. That's how they do it. They still do it like that.
Yes.
And it takes about half an hour. Whereas in the European Parliament, you would do it in 30 seconds.
Wow.
So you can tell the difference in the
Absolutely. But even though you've served in two parliaments, your passion and your determination, particularly for anti-racism movements, for movements to fight the venom of anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, have stayed strong and clear. And you've continued that work in the Westminster Parliament as well.
That's right. Look, what you can see now is throughout Europe and in Britain, the huge discrimination which goes on against Muslims is Islamophobia. So we were able to do some good work on that. We put some experts together. We have an APPG on British Muslims, where we went through the whole hearing ideas from Muslims, from non-Muslims, from experts, from lawyers, and then we defined a definition. And we've been then pushing this through. Alhamdulillah, this work is still being carried on. Many councils, many mayors, almost all the political parties have accepted this definition. What is sad is the current government, the Tory party, still haven't accepted this. And we know there's a huge problem in the political point of view in both the Conservative Party. I also didn't spare my own party. We did a report on Islamophobia in Labour Party, and that report also identified issues in the Labour Party. And the leadership were actually very good. They accepted it. They accepted all our recommendations. And we are now going through a process of making sure all those recommendations are implemented in the Labour Party. But the fight with the Conservative parties goes on. And that fight is of every person, every good, decent person, whether Muslim or non-Muslim. We should have a zero tolerance to any sort of discrimination against any group. Britain is a proud, rich, diverse country with richness in faith, richness in race, richness in so many other ways. And we should actually ensure that we have all fight together on this issue of discrimination. Next week, Tuesday, I've managed to get another debate in Parliament, in the Westminster debate. It happens at 2:30. And I would say to your viewers, contact your MPs, make sure they speak out. What we want, not only the Muslim MPs speaking, we want all MPs to be there and to speak out against this, so that we can build that pressure on the government so they take action and get rid of this awful way where so much crime, I would say, is against Muslims. If you look at the Home Office figures, you will see that more than half the religious hate is against Muslims. So all the other faiths put together are less than half. More than half are Muslims. So it shows you the scale. And this is not just this year, it's year after year this is happening. So we owe it to our future generation, we owe it to Britain to basically tackle this head on and to not allow any party to get away with this. They must accept this and they must bring necessary framework to counter this.
Yes. Of course, the Conservative Party would argue that they stand firm against all forms of hatred, Islamophobia included. But your view is very clear, Afzal Khan MP, and well documented in the press as well. Indeed, when there was the Conservative Party leadership contest where Boris Johnson was ultimately elected leader and prime minister, there was a pledge given by all of those who stood that they would look at ensuring, and they would ensure that Islamophobia, the definition against Islamophobia, is actually adopted, and the point is there recognized. Finally, Afzal Khan MP, briefly, if you would, you mentioned the backdrop of Islamophobia, how bad it has become and how serious it has become. What would be your message to anyone watching out there wanting to fulfill their aspirations but being held back by discrimination, by racism, by barriers? What would be your brief message?
My brief message is, by sitting back, you will not change anything. Change only comes through pressure. And you've got to be consistent and devise different means to really get through this, break these glass ceilings. We can do it. We have been doing. Our forefathers have done this. They've come a long way. We can go far. There's no shortages of abilities in ourselves. It's only through discrimination that those abilities not being given appropriate opportunities. So we've got to do that. So we've got to build those alliances. By building those alliances, you strengthen yourselves, and you do get things turned over, and you do get things changed. We can do it. There's so many other things we've seen in the past history where these wrong things have become a part of the history. We can do it. So, be a great example yourself. Be a fighter. Go for it. And challenge it. And if you see it being done against someone else, stand up for them.
Absolutely.
That's a great way of building allies.
Absolutely. The Honourable Afzal Khan MP, it's been an absolute honour and pleasure, sir, to have you on the programme. Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing with us your inspirational story of battling against racism, discrimination and the odds, leaving school with no qualifications to where you are today. An impressive role model for everyone across the political spectrum and in the wider community. Thank you so much for joining us as well, dear viewers. Inshallah, back next week. Assalamu alaikum.